Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi-Ngubane will tonight meet with relevant stakeholders to discuss the effects of coronavirus on the industry. Many countries have imposed entry bans for visitors from areas most affected by the outbreak. Major airlines like British Airways, Qatar Airways and Lufthansa have all cancelled flights to mainland China. About 95,000 Chinese tourists visit South Africa every year. So what effect has the virus had on the local tourism industry so far? Well, to share some of those insights and information, I'm joined in the studio by the Chief Executive Officer of Tourvis Destination Management, Mr. Martin Vist. Mr. Vist, good morning, and thank you very much for your time. When you're sitting here in the studio and listening to Dr. Jose Litlape, for example, that clip we've just played, he said, it's not time for joy riding, only do necessary travel. From a tourist perspective, that tells you that times are tough.
Yeah, definitely, and good morning to you and your viewership. Dan, I think I also want to quickly cross-refer to your introduction to the topic earlier on. I think we've got to keep it in context. In Africa, we've got many illnesses that kill many people. Take tuberculosis or malaria as a comparison base in terms of statistics. And I think it's very important to understand what we're seeing in terms of coronavirus at the moment is nowhere near the type of exposure and risk that people living in Africa have to those two. And I think it's very important that we don't fall for the globally hyped media panic that we currently see. And whilst I'm certainly not a medical expert, and there's many things that needs to be done in a cautionary fashion, I think we must be very, very careful of not falling for a panic.
But currently, there's still so many unknowns about coronavirus. Foreign markets in your sector, tourism, who are favored by the Chinese, because Chinese travel in huge groups globally, are already feeling the pinch.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in South Africa, the Chinese tourists are not the majority of tourists that travel here. The biggest group of tourism that comes to South Africa is German-speaking Europe, followed by the United Kingdom, sorry, the other way around. USA, Italy are very relevant markets, and Italy, as you know, has got substantial problems at the moment in terms of coronavirus. Their peak season to South Africa is June, July and August. So I think we can rightfully expect that to have an impact on the volumes to expect in this market. And certainly tourism globally is slowing down materially. I was in Frankfurt Airport on Thursday night myself, and I've never seen that airport so empty, and I go through there virtually every month. So it definitely has an impact on tourism.
But I guess it's a sensible thing to expect people not to want to travel at this stage when there's so little, or we still know little. I mean, I had a doctor sitting where you're sitting on Friday telling us there's still a lot that we need to learn and understand about COVID-19. Therefore, err on the cautionary side.
And maybe that's true. And I think that's one needs to understand what the impact on the tourism industry as a whole. Because if you then choose to come to South Africa on holiday, and as a result of the virus at the moment, you choose not to travel at the moment. And I don't think people are worried about their time spent in South Africa, because the likelihood of meeting 3 or 10 or 15 people out of a population of 55 million is relatively small. But I think
thankfully those people now that we're mentioning who traveled to Italy recently, according to the health minister, have been identified and are in isolation.
And I think the South African government and Department of Health has done a sterling job so far. So I think their transparent communication, their rapid reaction, I think has been really,
Which sectors, Mr. Vist, would you expect to be hardest hit? I mean, we were talking just before we came on air, that there are different sectors of tourism,
yes,
types of tourism.
Yes.
There's that joy riding. Dr. Jose Litlape was talking about you go around, you're having fun, traveling for holiday, but there's also business travel. We saw there's this summit that's happening in Uganda, EU Business Summit, starting in Kampala today, and the government saying be quarantined because you're coming from category 1 countries. Those 22 foreign nationals saying no, and the government today said go back home.
Then there's different downstream effects of the different sectors. So if I take the Joyride customer that you're referring to, that customer wants to come to South Africa on holiday. So he might defer it at the moment, but he'll catch up at a later stage. So I think what we will see is a rapid decline of those arrivals at the moment. But once the virus is either accepted as the norm and just another flu, or not, or sorted, or there's a vaccine, there will be a catch-up factor, and I think we'll see the growth in tourism, inbound leisure to South Africa. If you cancel your business trip today and you do that business trip every month, you're unlikely to catch up on that business trip. So I think business travel is more impacted in terms of unrecoupable travel. Big events and incentives, I think, is where we most hit at the moment.
Like conferences?
I was supposed to be last week in the biggest tourism and travel conference in Berlin in Germany, 80,000 exhibitors, 160,000 visitors, and they cancelled that particular conference 2 days before. As a matter of fact, that's why I was in Germany already to attend that conference when it got cancelled. One can question the wisdom of the travel industry to cancel their single biggest showpiece and the message that they send with it, but again, I'm not a health expert.
Yeah, now you go to the other sector. We've sent a colleague of ours, Kailihle Khumalo, to the Kruger Park this morning, just to have a look. It's one of the favorite destinations of people who travel to South Africa. There's lodges, there's hotels, there's restaurants. That kind of activity, how do you anticipate might be hit by coronavirus?
I think Kruger National Park is going to have less impact, frankly, because the domestic tourism is what is the bulk of tourism that travels to Kruger National Park, which is not necessarily true to the luxury lodges on the fringes of Kruger National Park. I think in South Africa, and in terms of timing, if there's any such thing as lucky timing when it comes to globally spread viruses, as South Africa, we're fortunate that the virus has become most prevalent when we run into our off-season. South Africa's quietest season is April, May, June, July, and August, and our peak season in this country is September, October, November, and February, March. When it comes to tourism, and I certainly hope that by the time the booking period starts and our travel period starts, that a lot of the current panic has dissipated.
So even the little travel to South Africa in the down season, which is coming up now, it's going to be hit.
It's going to be materially hit, and I think domestic and international business tourism is going to be hit. I think conferences and events are being hit. It's big money in an industry that in South Africa in particular has had a difficult 2 years. And maybe if I can say, Dan, I think the important part here is that we're going to use this difficult time to resolve certain of the issues that hinder our tourism growth, and that when the coronavirus disappears into thin air, that all of those bottlenecks are gone and we can take full advantage of the uptick in tourism thereafter.
I was just thinking, Tourvis is one of the biggest tourism operators regionally. I mean, you're a big company, you deal with a lot of things. You've got lodges, you organize conferences, you're present in many other countries. The Minister is meeting stakeholders tonight, according to information. You're going to be there?
Yes, I will be.
I was going to be asking, if you're going to be there, what are you going to be telling it? And in line of the last question, your answer now rather, what are you going to be asking for?
I think the important part is that when there's a health concern and a health panic, and we've seen it with Ebola, we've seen it with SARS, we've seen it with various health scares before. As a matter of fact, we've seen it with 9/11, which wasn't a health scare but a terrorism scare. Tourism is always first hit, and business and tourism dissipates the quickest. Fortunately, we're also in an industry that comes back the quickest. So you know, I don't know what your expectation is of how long this will last, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year.
Nobody knows at this stage.
Nobody knows, but I think tourism will come back quickly. People want to go on holiday, people want to reward themselves for their hard work, and then
so what are you going to be asking the Minister?
I'm going to ask the Minister tonight to accept the fact that the downturn is here. The downturn is here to stay, because you can't fix the fear of people, but that we simultaneously address all of the bottlenecks we have systematically in South Africa that allow us to grow our tourism rapidly once this is over.
So you're hoping that those bottlenecks, if they are addressed properly in the next few months, when things change for the better, you will be ready to really
take advantage
and get more tourists.
Exactly right, Dan. Yeah. Exactly that.
Any example, Mr. Viss, before you go, of what kind of bottlenecks you'd want to be resolved?
I think currently we still have certain visa topics from certain countries. Fortunately, our arrivals with minors has been resolved. There's still substantial bottlenecks when it comes to registration of touring vehicles, foreign language skills, tour guide availability. There's enough topics that we can address at the moment to put ourselves in a brilliant position to take advantage of the uptick that we all expect.
You heard my introduction to the show. You made a comment about it when you answered the first question. But before you go, should we impose a travel ban?
I don't believe that will work, firstly. Secondly, I think, Dan, it's very important to try and balance the negative news out of coronavirus against the economic growth requirement, especially in a country with the socio-economic problems that we have in South Africa. I would think it would be a sin if we would make this topic so huge and so scary that our economy suffers, and as a result our poor people in this country suffer more. And I think that would be far more detrimental to the health development in this country than what we see with the coronavirus at the moment.
Thank you very much. very much. Martin Viss, the Chief Executive Officer of Tourvis Destination Management.